Welcome, welcome. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Coffee Hour. My name is Paul, and welcome to what seems to be lately a very rare live stream. But thanks for joining me, and thanks for joining me on such a short notice. Obviously, we're used to doing our Wednesday night sessions, which we have that tomorrow night with my Fast Tracks folks, my members, and of course, subscribers. They can join us as well if you choose. But I wanted to do something for everybody because I've been getting an awful lot of people emailing me lately asking about lives and when are we going live or when are we going to do some live stuff. And so I figured what better time than to go on and while I have the time to do it, to do a live stream and talk a little bit about exam preparation, the thought process. Of course, there might be some of you in here that aren't preparing for an exam. I mean, that's not your thing. You might already have a license. But again, I would say the majority of this is going to be for those folks that are really cracking down, really trying to study to get that license. And so that's what this is. This is all about, trying to help you out and talk about the process of getting a license. I also have quite a few emails that are coming in that people are they're not in our Fast Tracks program or just in general don't understand the concept of how you study, how you put things together, what you need to do to be successful. So we want to talk about that as well tonight, and hopefully that helps folks out learning how to be successful when studying for exam. And it doesn't matter whether or not you're using our program, Mike Holt program, a Style Cup program, or whatever. The concept is making sure that you study with a purpose. I don't know how many people that I see struggle on exams only to contact and reach out and say, what's the secret to it? Passing that exam, getting your license. There really isn't any secret. It's fundamentally trying to learn as much of the code, and that's why we say 90 days. It allows you to immerse yourself into the code just a little bit longer than just flipping through a book. You can get a lot of test questions out there. You can buy books, and that's fine because I'm all for the test questions. Anything that helps you get more proficient with the NEC. But you have to be careful because in many cases, you get into this analysis by paralysis and you simply are becoming a machine and looking at code questions. And of course, we're going to look at code questions and talk about all those type of things, but we just want to make sure that you understand you still have to learn. And the more that you can learn, the easier it will be on you when you take the exam, right? Because I'm telling you, you're not going to be able to pass the exam by using the index for everything. Okay. You're not going to be able to do that. Okay. So we're going to talk about all those things in tonight's episode. We may go an hour, we may go longer than an hour. I don't know. We're going to see what all happens and how we do it. So let's kind of get started. Again, you can come in and go out as you want. Again, thanks for everybody jumping into the stream. I appreciate it. We're streaming on multiple platforms, over on our Facebook page, over on our LinkedIn page, over on our Twitter, over on our Twitch. Who goes to Twitch anymore? But that's there. And we have, I guess we're also on, obviously here on YouTube as well. And soon we're going to be streaming on our website live every time we do these. So you don't have to go to those social media platforms if you don't want to. And also we'll be streaming in our app very soon. If you haven't gotten our free app, you want to make sure that you get our free app. It's free. Just go to necchat.com. That's our portal for downloading the free app. So check that out. A lot of content in there as well. All right, so let's kind of talk about how we get started. So first of all, what's the importance of the exam? And I know you folks know why you want to take it, right? But in your mind, you've got to start thinking, why do I want the exam? If you're an apprentice, and those here that came for the exam questions, we're going to do it, trust me, but hold on for a second. I need to get this thought out here. there's a lot of people, and you've heard me and Jay say this before, Jay Grunberg, on when we did the Electrify and Electrician Live. You've heard us talk about Apprentisaurus and why you need to get that license. So a lot of people say that piece of paper means nothing. I disagree. There's also people on TikTok and other places that say you should get paid a lot more, whether you have the paper or not. I disagree. I believe that a license is always a gateway to everything, and you have to earn that piece of paper to show your worth. And you might be the best electrician in the world, but I'm not going to call you an electrician until you get that paper, okay? Unless you're in a state that doesn't have licensure and you just have electrical contracting, I'm going to call you somebody studying to become an electrician. I hope that doesn't sound harsh, but reality is if you put 30 years into the business and you never got your license, just because you can do the pull in the raceway, pull the stuff, it tells me there's one little element that you're unable to get over, and that is the code. And you cannot be a well-rounded electrician unless you have a good grasp of the code as well as the hands-on. You can get by. Don't get me wrong. You can get by until you're backed into a corner and somebody wants you to prove yourself. And I think that's where code ends up becoming so important because it really goes hand in hand. So whether you get it from me, right? Whether you get it from somebody else, at this stage, that's not what tonight's about. Although, again, you see me promoting our Fast Tracks program, but at the end of the day, we're gonna talk in general. So it really doesn't matter who you use, what you use. We're gonna talk all these processes in general. So, because I want to get that out of the way. All right, so you need to get your license. If you're studying for it and you got the hours in, then you definitely need to go on and buckle down and learn to get that license. Now, people ask, when should you start studying if you're apprentice? When should you start studying for your license, to get your license? Right away. So in the day, if you're working with the hands, in the evening, you should be looking at the code book. You should be getting yourself familiar with this document because it's not the easiest document to understand. Hey, I learned something new every day in this document. It's still an amazing book, and there's so much in there that we just don't dabble in. So first challenge that I tell anybody, whether you're seasoned or not, is always go for the challenging stuff, right? Don't go for the low-hanging fruit stuff that you're like, I know that stuff. So don't keep studying that stuff. Study the stuff that you find difficult to understand, whether it's motors, transformers, maybe the tap rules you don't understand in 240.21. Maybe grounding and bonding is your Achilles heel. You don't understand the concepts of the differences, yet how they're similar. Maybe there's a disconnect there, pun intended. So at the end of the day, I want you to challenge things that are tough for you. It's only going to make you a better electrician. There's always been some misconceptions about me, whether it's my peers or others, that I care more about the videos and the things that I do for us. And I would not give the thousands of hours that I give away for free if it was all about us or if it was all about me. I get more joy out of seeing the success of a student or somebody that I've worked with, a peer, a friend. I'll give you a great example. Most of y'all probably know Yolandi. I don't even know his whole name. Yolandis? Landis? I don't know. I call him Yo. He's been in our Fast Tracks program. He's been very diligent, comes to class, focuses really hard. He's just one of many. But the day he was successful getting his license as an electrical contractor in New Jersey, extremely proud of him. You can see that in the work that he does every Wednesday night. He comes to class and it pays off. Hard work pays off. If this profession was so easy to get a license, then everybody would get it. And I prefer to allow those that can't get it, do something else. Okay? But you all can get it, right? You all can get it. It's so difficult that you can't achieve that, right? So that's the thing we want. So I have a lot of people in the chat. We have quite a few folks in here tonight, so we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of it. But I see a lot of people pass their exams, and Trench, I see you in there. James, Tim, Code Strong, Adam's in there. We've got Wyn is in there in the house. We've got Khalil. I think it's Kaylee. Anyway, from Arkansas, right up the road here, kinda. We got Waffles in the house, MK in the house. Who else? Schwartzy, as always. I know Schwartzy's always there, like clockwork. We've got Ken's Wired showed up, ready to get started. So anyway, so we got a bunch of people in the room here tonight. Russ is in the house. So let's go on and look at some things here. Okay. So in order to be properly prepared for an electrical exam, what we want to do is remember that you really need about 90 days of prep time. The magic number to be proficient is anywhere between 94 to 100 hours of dedicated study. Now, in our program, the Fast Tracks, again, whoever's program you're using, in our program, you have 19 units and you work through the units. And when you get a grade below 60%, we make you do the unit again. When you get over 60%, I give you the answer. But the whole the concept of me giving you the answers is so that you can go back and look and see why you got it wrong, right? That's how our program works. No matter what program you've got, let's say you just have a questions and answers book, a workbook, and somebody asked me to recommend one. I really don't have one I can recommend because, again, I don't know them that well and I don't proof them. I only know what we have. So we have a program where it's just Q&A that's available to purchase, which is just the 800 plus questions that we have in the database, or you get them included in our Fast Tracks program. No matter who you get them from, okay, let's establish that now, whether it's something, Mike Holtz stuff you got or Style Cup stuff you got or whatever you've got and you're studying, maybe something Nika book or IEC book, or maybe something from Ryan, so whatever you've got. What I recommend you to do with any good question is to stop focusing on time. You heard me say it. Stop focusing on time, at least until the last 2 weeks before your exam. I'm going to tell you why, because it is so easy to get frustrated. You'll see us dissect a question and we'll take 10 minutes on a question and somebody will say, dude, you'll never pass the exam, Paul, if it takes you 10 minutes to find the answer. They don't understand the process of studying. So I'm going to show you what it means to be studying with a plan. Studying with a plan means you go through specific units or you study specific topics that helps you retain the information. The reason that I don't like books that just have Q&A, just questions, is because they're just random questions. You got to remember something. When you get on an exam, if you find yourself having to use that index a lot and you run out of time, it's because there are certain questions that you should have been able to answer right away, right? You should have been able to answer it simply because of the learning knowledge that you got as you were studying the code book. Now, if you're grabbing a code book and you're just flipping through it, you're going to struggle because you have no clue what's on the exam. Hell, I don't know what's on the exam half the time. The states change all the time. Now, I know what's on the Texas exam. I know what's on Virginia exam. I know certain exams around the country, what's the concept is that they're going to be on the exam. So our program is a little uniquely different because it gives you the reading material, then it has little chevrons and it expects you to go to the code, then you come back. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. The only reason that we do that is very simple. And you could do it yourself. What it's doing is trying to work you out of the course material into the code book, out of the code book into the course material. And then when we get to competency reviews, we're not going to give you these softball questions that are based 100% on the content that you read, right? What a waste. We're going to throw some curveballs at you, okay? So be prepared for that if you're in our Fast Tracks program. Now, if you're studying other programs, for example, then remember, I want you to take the questions that you have in that program, whatever you're studying, and you dissect that question. Before you finish that question, I want you, believe it or not, to spend at least 5 minutes on it, maybe even 10. And you're going to say, well, that's stupid. No. What I want you to do is take that question and learn to dissect the root of that question. What's going to help me if I have to go to the index? Because the index is not the holy grail. Okay, this isn't a Tom Henry keyword index. Okay, Tom Henry and them do a great job with their term index. In some states, you can even use that, but in reality, you just got to know. And people ask, why do I keep sending you to the index? Uh, the reason for that is so you can slowly learn what is in the index and what is not in the index. That's why I do it. Okay. Okay. So that's the whole concept of why we do it, to move you in and out. And that's why we do it. And that's why we'll do some of that tonight as well in this little lesson that we're going to do. Okay. So you want to have at least 90 days. I know some people have less than that. I understand it. It just means that you're going to have to study so much harder. Even on the 90-day study type of study plan, to be proficient in the code, and this is not something I just made up overnight, okay? This is 30 plus years of analyzing the stuff, of the taking tests and the time and the ability to absorb it and all that kind of stuff. What I've determined that anywhere between 94 to 100 study hours dedicated to the code, and you can round it, say 95 to 100, it doesn't matter. It's right in that magic window. That is where, if you're doing a 90-day, then what you're doing is you're actually studying 2 times a week for 4 hours each session. Okay? So that is 3 months, 90 days. And you're able to dedicate. Now, some people say, Paul, I can't do it 2 times a week for 4 hours. Okay. But can you do it 4 times a week? Right? So you're sitting there going, so 2 times a week for 4 hours is 8 hours. But can you do it 4 times a week for 2 hours? The magic number doesn't change. And it's just based on how you're saying, where do we get these numbers? These numbers are based on my numbers that I've done through the years. I'm not saying it, everybody has to agree on that, right? But that is where I came up with that magic sweet spot. And I can tell you, success doesn't lie. Students that work through our program that maintain high grades, that when they get less than 85% on a unit, they go back and really, really study it. And then they do the practice exams and they really focus, they're successful. And it's just code. Okay. So that's the amount of time. Now, if you want to do it in 60 days, we give a recommend. And you know what? We have a free document that you can download right on the front of our website. It's free. It talks about the 60-day and 90-day study plan. You can literally use this approach for any study material. Okay. But again, I'm going to tell you, I am not a big fan of just buying code questions alone. That's it. Okay, I'm just not. Because they don't teach you the code. They just teach you to look up code questions. Trench, you need to do it in 30 days. None of our programs are going to be recommended for you. Okay, you need more than 30 days for our programs. At least you probably could do it at your own pace, and you might be able to really dedicate the time. We used to have a 30-day program, but it was way too intense. It was 5 days a week. And it was, 5 days a week for the, I think it was 4 hours each session. I mean, it's intense. But at the end of the day, that's why we got rid of it, because again, people could not dedicate the time they needed to it. And the code is the code. Now, you might have extra knowledge of the code that you can use our program. Remember, you can do it at your own pace. Okay, so that's totally up to you. I'm not going to speak to anybody else's program. I just say with ours, you get access to it for a year, 24/7, 365. Do it at your own pace. If you need to study in 30 days, the material's there. Now, whether or not you absorb it, it's different, right? It's different, okay? So let's talk about, before we get into some questions, let's talk about what happens when we start studying the units. Now, you should be doing a practice exam weekly, okay? Even if it's just the questions, just do 10 of them weekly. But that alone, just doing the practice questions, cannot be your main form of study. Flipping through the code book. So if you do anything, no matter who you get, if you do anything and you really need to pass an exam, you're not going to be, you might get lucky, but you're not going to be successful in just doing practice questions. So you're going to be searching on the internet, you'll be looking on YouTube, you'll be going all over the place in order to get some lessons on code. That's okay. Anything you can get, I support all educators that put things up on YouTube and all that kind of stuff. I do. I support everybody that's helping educate other people. Just be careful of the content because sometimes you don't know if the answers are right or not. So that type of thing. But again, at the end of the day, I'm a believer in grab as much knowledge as you can and study. Now, last 2 weeks before you test, no matter who you use, what you use, last 2 weeks before you test is the time that you start timing your work. So on your phone, you're going to set your timer. You're going to put it for 2 minutes, right? And you're going to set that timer and go. And I don't really care the number that you get at the exam, how much based on the number of questions divided by the time to find out what you get per question. Now, I just want you to use 2 minutes per question and wait until you get to the last 2 weeks. One is you need to be building that code knowledge up to that point because, again, if you have to go to the index for everything, it's not going to happen. So there's certain questions you want to be able to answer right away just because you've either studied it or you recognize it or you've come across it as you're flipping through a structured plan. So what is a structured plan? It takes you from the beginning of the code book to the end of the code book and everywhere in between. It gives you calculations, single family, multifamily, other than dwelling. It gives you a little bit of a piece of everything. That's the only way you can truly study for a test. Okay, so I hate to disappoint people, and some people get lucky, but you go to Amazon and you buy a book that's got 100 questions, 200 questions in it, and that's your only form of studying. You're not really learning the code. You're just learning how to look up things in the code. And you're going to struggle. You might get lucky, and I hope you do. If that's your goal and you want to get licensed and that's your plan of attack, I hope you're lucky. Again, I wish never anything negative on anybody. If that's your plan of attack, then I wish you the best of luck and hope that you get it. Okay? Hope you do. All right, so now let's go on and look at some questions and dissect some questions. And these are new questions. I have not seen them. We have a new database from this online program that has them. It's not the same ones that are in our fast tracks because there's over 800 in our fast tracks. And I do those so often. And I do know I have quite a few students in here. So we want to save those questions for them. And we're going to look at some new questions and see if we can't dissect and look at and see what they might be. And you might know the answer. So if you're following along and you're in the chat, go ahead and give your answer. All right. So let's see here. I think I cut myself off at the top of my head here. Bear with me for a second while I try to adjust my head because I think I cut myself off here real quick. Yeah, let's see if I can make myself smaller. Always cutting my head off. All right. So we're going to look at a question. We're going to dissect it a little bit again and try to be prepared for what we might encounter on an exam. All right. So blank wiring systems of any type shall be installed in ducts used to transport dust, loose stock, or flammable vapors. Okay. So if you've been studying the program, this one should be an absolute no-brainer for you, right? Okay. Because none of this would make sense. So the reason I bring this up is because we have different rules about the different wiring methods that can go in things that are called environmental airspaces. We have different wiring methods that can go in those environmental airspaces, but we also have plenums and those type of things. And then, of course, we have duct systems that are designed to move things like dust and loose stock. It might be a duct that's exhausting out flammable vapors from a classified location. It might be a wood pulp plant, and it actually is moving sawdust or pulp, those type of things. So this one is a common sense approach to it because it says plastic, metal, or flexible wiring systems. I don't even think that we've ever used this kind of nomenclature when we're talking about any type of wiring systems, right? We have the different types of wire. We have metallic. We have well, this says metal, but we have rigid, intermediate. We have MC cable. We have all these other types of different things. But this question should be obvious, and this is one of those ones that you probably, if you're lucky enough to get this on an exam as your very first question out the gate, boom, you're good to go. But we want to look this up and see what we're talking about here. So this is wiring systems. So in my mind, this tells me right away that we're talking about a general rule, right? Because it's talking about wiring systems in general, not any specific wiring system. It's just in general, right? And so in this case, I'm thinking about the general requirements in chapter 3. And so my mind's thinking 300, right? Is what we're talking about, 300. But we're talking here about whether or not you can have any type of wiring system in any of these ducts, okay? So typically, one of the things I would do here is you could go to the index, or if you get to understanding and feeling that we're talking about a wiring system in general, then you're thinking, okay, if it's a wiring system in general, then I need to go to the general requirements of 300. And then we would use a technique called bold scanning. So again, I haven't looked these up, so I'm going to go to 300. And once I get to 300, this is the general requirements for wiring methods and material. Now, bold scanning, I would look to see, and that's all the main headers of Boltech 305s underground. I'm going to continue to go. Let's see here. All of that dealing with underground. 300.7, raceways exposed to different temperatures. Nope. 300.11, securing and supporting. That's fire-rated assemblies and non-fire-rated assemblies. Nope. Has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. And I'm looking at 310.15. Nope, that's boxes. Absolutely nothing. 300.16, concealed wiring. Nope. 300.17, number. Nope. 300.18, raceway installations, complete runs. Good to remember, because you might get a question like that. 300.19, okay, spacing conductors and vertical raceways. Nope. 300.20, induced currents and ferrous metal raceways. Nope. Wait a minute now. 300.21, spread of fire and products of combustion. 300.22, wiring in ducts not used for environmental air handling, fabricated ducts for environmental air, and other spaces for environmental air. Okay, so first one I look at, it says ducts for dust, loose stock, and vapor removal. Kind of matches this question right here, right? But we want to be more specific because there would be more than 300.22. This would be 300.22a, right? And it says no wiring system of any type shall be installed in ducts used to transport dust, loose stock, or flammable vapors. Okay, so we can answer this question, and it looks like no. So we're going to answer this, but then I want to show you some ways how you might reverse engineer it. Okay, so I'm going to go answer the question, and it looks like, let me move my thing over here to the right here. And it looks like no, and that is correct. And our reference is 300.2a, okay? That is indeed our reference. So we're right, Schwartzy is, and I would expect nothing less. MK asked, would that question really be on a test? MK, why the hell wouldn't it? I do get this question a lot from people. Somebody will say, well, I don't know why you do this box fill. That would never be on a test. How do we know what is going to be on a test? What I do know is that it may ask this kind of question on the test, but the question really is, do you know how to answer it? It's not so much, is it going to be on an exam? I can't overall tell you what's exactly going to be on an exam. But I can tell you that if I can teach you how to find it, that is the key, right? Teaching you how to find it. So asking to me, would this question really be on a test? Why not? It's a good question. Somebody asking, and you have to know that you can't have other types you can't have any wiring method that's inside of something because of the dust or the wood or any of those flyings or loose stock could damage it. That type of thing, right? So again, I think it's a very plausible question that could end up on an exam. I stopped trying to anticipate that stuff long ago, because you know what? You could buy a set of questions somewhere and you could invest your money in them and you could say, well, these questions are not, or not. What I can tell you is my students tell me that in our fast tracks program, this is not the fast tracks, but the people in the fast tracks say that they see a lot of our questions on the exam. One, because they're not written by us. It's actually a package that's purchased that goes with our fast tracks. And the people that write those questions just so happen to probably write questions for exams. And so some of the questions are very similar to what they'd see on the exam. Doesn't mean these are, MK, but I mean, some of the stuff that would be in our fast tracks program might be. But I never know what could be on an exam, most certainly. So I would say, yes, plausible that this could be on the exam. I need to know what I can't put in there. And but the good news is you might be able to answer this one right away. You might say, well, this was too easy. I know no wiring system. But my process on a good one is to just take an exam question, whether it's good or bad, whether you think it's going to be on an exam or not, and really get used to finding it, right? Just get used to finding it. So in this case right here, if I were to go to the index and try to see if there's anything in the index that would help me, then I might look at some of the questions here. I might look at ducks. So I might go to the back and see if there's anything in the back under ducks and things like that. And see if there's anything there. That's where we would just kind of beat the question to death. And I'm not going to overly do that tonight, but you have ducks is in the index. And if you go down and you'll see that there's wiring in. And under wiring in, it gives you 300.21 and 300.22. So the only thing you had to establish was that this is a general wiring question. And that's what Article 300 is. So you could have found the answer to this one if you didn't know by going to ducts. Now, let's think of why this couldn't have worked in other ways. Well, maybe they weren't asking about a duct that being in the duct with has loose stock or flammable vapors. But what if they were asking you about the different wiring methods that can go in an environmental airspace, right? That acts like a plenum. Y'all do know the difference, right? So if I have a drop ceiling and above my ceiling I have an air handler unit, if that air handler unit is pulling air from that cavity, right? And then there's grills in the drop ceiling that sucks the air from the room up into that cavity above the ceiling. And then it's being sucked into the air handler, but then it's being blown through ducts back into the rooms. Then that space up there is called environmental airspace. And it's basically treated like a plenum. So there are certain wiring methods that can go in there. And that was where you would get it. If you had that question on an exam, you went to ducts and you went down from ducts, you can see wiring in, and it gives you a list. Now, you get so savvy in the code, and I know you are, I know my fast track students are, that they would have looked at this right away and saw that 725 is remote signaling. They would have said no. 760 fire alarm, no. 770 fiber optics and things like that. They would have known that this is a general wiring question, and they would have stopped at the 300, right? And then they would have seen 300.21, 300.22, and that's where they would have gone, right? Okay, so waffles on your exam, they are going to be multiple choice. Yep. They are going to be multiple choice on your exam. And you can use a process of elimination in order to get to that. Here we could have used metal wiring systems, flexible or plastic. Those don't even sound plausible, so the no makes more sense. But what I'm trying to show you is the methods to the madness, right? All states are multiple choice. Now, our fast tracks is not when it comes to the competency. That's the trigger. Ron will tell you. Tim will tell you. All of them that are in the program will tell you, nope. There's a couple in there, but mainly we want you to answer it because I want to know that you know the material, right? So, yeah, but on a state exam, yes, multiple choice. multiple choice. So anyway, that was a good one because there's different ways to find it. So if I had to ask you about the different types of wiring methods for use in an environmental airspace, right? There you go. Now, let me finish that thought. So what if I had a drop ceiling with an air handler above it, but the air that comes from the room comes through a grate into a duct, and it goes into the side of the air handler, okay? And then from the outside output of the air handler, it goes down and back into the room. So that closed loop system, that is a plenum, right? That means that the space above the suspended ceiling is not. It's just a regular space, just like down in the room. It's the same up there. I could put PVC material up there. It wouldn't be a problem because that is not an environmental airspace. Why? Because it's not pulling the air from that space into the air handler. But in order to find out the type of, and any wiring method can go up there that's listed in chapter 3. But if it's pulling air from that space into the air handler from the room below, then that's an environmental airspace. You treat it like a plenum, and only certain types of wiring methods can be up there. And you're going to find those all in 300.22. Okay? All right. Anyway, good question. Good elaboration on it. That type of thing. Let's see here. Let's go to the next question. Okay. All right, so this one is a knowledge-based question. It may or may not be on an exam, but they do ask you knowledge-based types of questions on exams. So let's see what this one might be. So if a 5 kW electric heating element rated for 240 volts is connected to a 208 volt system, the output for the heating element is blank wattage. So this is an Ohm's law question, and it's based on a 0.866 squared, and it's a concept, but I'm going to give you, for this one, and this is the most common where they talk 240 to 208 scenarios, right? And so this case scenario, it's approximately 75%. So the first way that I answer this question is that 5,000 is the wattage at 240, right? And 208 is less voltage, so it's going to result in less wattage, right? So anything less than 5,000 is given an option. So none of the above is probably not the best option. 3744, I don't think that is absolutely 100% accurate. It's 75% of 5,000. But I think the most accurate answer here is probably one of those examples where you give the best plausible answer. And the best plausible answer here is probably either A or B. So at 240, it's 5. At 208, it's 3744 or approximately that. In fact, to find what I would find using that rule of 75%, or you could take the 5,000 minus 25%. Let's see here, 5,000 times 75%, it's 3750, okay? And that's going to be close enough to 3744. But I am sure if I'm thinking about this, the real answer could be selected as 3744. But 5,000 isn't totally wrong. It's just not going to be 5,000 at 208, okay? So even if you have a bad question, so let's see what this is. I'm going to go either A or B, but I really think the answer is more closer to A, right? So let's see here with this. You never know what the person who wrote the test. Oh, I'm trying to move this thing up a little bit so I can see y'all's posts. All right, so, okay, either A or B. Personally, I think the more closer answer is this. I don't think it's 5. So I don't necessarily buy into whoever wrote this test questions is either A and B. And obviously none of the above is the answer. Remember, if it's approximately, and there is a formula to use for that, and I can't remember the formula. I think I shared on my Facebook page. It's W1 times E2 over E1 squared. So E2, which is going to be the applied voltage, which is 208. So you divide 208 to 140, 208 to 240, and then you do that squared, and then you multiply that by the 5,000 watts, and that ends up giving you the value. Or you take the 5,000 times the result of 208 divided by 240 squared, which I think is 0.8666. Okay, so I think 5,000 times 0.8666 is, well, I don't even think that's right. No, I don't even think that's right. So I always remember this one. I always remember the rule because the most common one is a 240, 208. And that is to remember 75%. So this is just a knowledge one. And I'm not your strongest person for some of these knowledge type questions. I'm just saying. So I personally think that this is the wrong answer here. I think it's closer to this answer right here. But that's what they give, so we're gonna go with it for them anyway. All right. Let's see here. The next, where independent support wires are used for electrical equipment in non-fire rated assemblies, they shall be distinguishable by what? Color, tagging, other effective means, or all of the above. All right, so you might have seen this one earlier, but remember, this is talking about what? The support wires. So this sounds to me again like a chapter 3, a general wiring. In fact, you probably saw us talk about this a second ago when we were doing our bolt scanning. We saw it, all right? So we're gonna look in the back though, and I'm gonna go back into the index, and I'm gonna look and see under, let's see, what we look under. Let's look under support wires. Okay, let's go look under support wires and see if we see anything on support wires in our index. Hopefully you got your code book too. The reason I'm not using the code book to look at the index is because, as you know, NFPA no longer has a PDF version, so everything is online. There is no PDF version, and so my online version that I have does not allow me to see the index. So I might as well not use it and do just like you guys and try to look in the back of the book. All right, so we have supports in the back. There's something under supports. See, securing and supports. And let's see here. So there's under securing supports. So I'm going to look. Now I do see something under suspend. Oh, okay. So when I'm seeing this independent support wires, I'm thinking a suspended ceiling grid. That's the way my mind's thinking. Again, Tom Henry probably has something in the very back of his index that talks about that. But many states you can't do that. So if I'm looking at suspended ceiling grid, I see a 300.11b. Well, I'm going to write that down, okay, because that is a suspended ceiling grid. It does take a little urban knowledge to know these things. Otherwise, what is this anyway? So it's fire rated assembly. It's the rating of the grid. It can be fire rated or non-fire rated. The fire rated ones are much heavier. But in this case, it's independent supports. And we're talking about supporting anything like cables. I really shouldn't say independent. The independent support wire is what we would hang things, as long as it's not supporting the grid. So we have to have our own support wires coming down to put boxes on with bat wings, right? Those type of things. All right, so I'm looking in here. I'm looking to see if there's anything else that I would see in the back of the book. And this is what we're talking about when we say scanning and looking at the back and trying to dissect it. So under supports, it's sending me to securing. So I'm going to go back under securing and see what it has. If there's anything that might be helpful in here. Let's see here. No, I don't even actually see. I'm looking at somewhere else. I don't even see securing. So it's saying go back and look under securing. But I'm feeling pretty comfortable with that suspended ceiling grid reference in 300.11b. But I'm just saying. So those that are not familiar with this, nor my fast track students will tell you this, we spend a lot of time looking at the index. and looking at all the things in here that might get us the answer. Now, you're probably saying, if you've never done this before, if you've never gone to any of our sessions, you're probably thinking, well, Paul, I don't have but 2 minutes to answer the question. Then you came in late and you didn't listen to a word I had to say. Because I originally said, when you're studying the code and you're going back and forth, we're doing this for a reason. We're looking up in the index to see what I might dissect from this question so that later on, if I get a question in the exam, that something will trigger in my mind and go, whoa, wait a minute, I remember this, I remember that, okay? So that's one of the things. So let's see here. What else would I look under? Let's see here. One other thing I might look under would be, let's see, non-fire rated assemblies. Okay, so I'm gonna look under, let's see if there's anything under non, and let's see here. Don't see anything under that, okay. So I know it's a suspended ceiling. I feel very comfortable with going to 300.11, but why? Because I know that we're talking a general wiring, and that's what 300 is. It's the general rule, and this is talking about a general application. So that's the next lesson I'll tell you. If you find yourself, okay, and yeah, I know, isn't that weird how that does that? Again, sometimes you can get deep into the index and realize that it sends you on a wild goose chase. That's why you got to get used. Now, in our Fast Tracks program, this is talked about. So I would expect my students to know this just because it's talked about in the program, right? But at the end of the day, sometimes when you sit for an exam, you're just going to have to know things. And I know that we're talking about independent support wires of what? A non-fire rated assembly is the drop ceiling, okay? So 300 is the general wiring. So I'm gonna go to 300, and we saw it earlier, but I'm gonna go to 300, and it was 300.11, and I'm gonna go to 300.11, and what does it say? Securing and supporting. Next thing I'll notice is bold scanning, okay? And it saw right there, it's based on fire rated assemblies, and then we have one that's non-fire rated assembly. And what does the non-fire rated assembly say? It says wiring is located within the cavity of a non-fire rated assembly or roof ceiling assembly shall not be secured to or supported by the ceiling assembly, including the ceiling support wires. An independent means of secure support shall be provided and shall be permitted to be attached to the assembly. So basically it's saying, you've got your support wires to hold your grid, right? But then you have separate support wires for your electrical equipment. It's okay to connect to the grid, but it's different than the one that's supporting the grid. Makes sense. It says, where the independent support wires are used, they shall be distinguishable by color, tagging, or other effective means. So the answer to this one is what? So it's not 300.11.1, it's 300.11 what? B2. And the answer is all of the above. And it's 300.11b2. So sometimes the index, and I'm sure there is something in there. So let's talk real quick about reverse engineering a question, right? There you go, Schwartzy. You knew you'd get it. So let's talk about reverse engineering a question. How do you reverse engineer a question for you guys? If you're buying a set of questions and you want to get your money's worth, I want you to get your money's worth out of questions. So even a bad question is a good question. What you need to do is, now that you know the answer, 300.11b2, take some time. We're not going to do it today, but take some time and go back into the index now and search for all the plausible things, supports and everything. And now that you know the code reference, now you get to match up a code reference and see what may have made sense, right? I'm just saying, that's the way you would reverse a question. I know people do get frustrated with the index. It is frustrating. It's not going to help you answer every question. It's not. It's still great. Trust me. That's why I tell you, sometimes when you buy just a questions only, it sometimes can leave you with more questions. And that's why we say structured plans are always the way to go. It doesn't matter if it's mine, it can be anybody's, but it needs to be a structured plan. Okay. Okay. So anyway, just some advice with that. All right. So let's go on to the next question. Oh, I got some people in here, some questions, I guess. Jacob, welcome. Thank you for your recent path. Well, you're most welcome. I'm glad it helped you. Other questions? Do people know I have trouble seeing with these new glasses? I know that sounds like shouldn't be the case, but they're trifocals and they are crazy. But congratulations to everybody that's acing it out there. All right. Next question. Signs and outlining outlets shall be calculated at a minimum of blank VA for each required branch circuit. Okay. First thing it should come to mind, folks. When you see a question like this, it's asking about a calculation. It says the calculated. So it means it's going to have some value in VA. It's calculated for sign and outline lighting. Next, it should tell you, since it says for each branch circuit, that calculations reside in 220. Part 3 is a standard method. Part 4 is an optional method. Part 2 is all of the branch circuit calculations, right? Right? So this question should send you to part 2. Now, if you're using the index, and you know, I always say, get familiar with the index. Even if you find an exam where you're using it more than you should, hey, the more comfortable you are with the index, the better you're going to be. That's why we keep you doing it. I want to learn what's in there and what's not. We also learned that supporting's not in there, even though it references it, right? We learn stuff every day, okay? We all do not know it all, okay? So we want to go look. So in this case, the question is branch circuits is one thing. Sign and outline lighting outlets is another. So one of the ones I might go to do is I might go to signs and outline lighting, see what I got in there. So again, I'm going to use it. Now, if you already know the answer to this and you're on the exam and you've been through the course and you're like, boom, I got this, and go on. Everybody remember my 3-wave method? My 3-wave method is you go through the exam, you answer the questions you know right away. Don't spend more than a minute on it. If you're going to spend more than a minute on it, you mark it and you go on to the next one. Then you do the second wave, you spend no more than 2 minutes on a question. If you still can't get it at 2 minutes, you keep it marked and you move on to the third wave. In the third wave, you're going to answer that question no matter what. If you still have trouble finding it, you're still going to be what? You're going to be doing the best selection, removing the obvious that are wrong, the ones that, you know, in 4 questions, there's usually 1 or 2 that are like blatantly obvious, and increase your chances. But by that third wave, you're going to be answering the questions. Okay, first wave, 1 minute. If you don't get it, mark it, go to the next wave. Keep on getting it. Second pass, you're doing all the ones that you marked. Okay, those type. Then spend 2 minutes on a question. If you still can't find it in that 2 minutes, leave it marked, go to the next one. Okay, when you get one answered, unmark it if you feel comfortable with it, and then go to the next one. That third wave is again for all those that are marked. Make sense? All right, that's the 3-wave, and we have a video for that. If you're not familiar with that, go check it out. It's free, doesn't cost you a dime. Okay. All right, so where are we at? Okay, nobody's answered this question yet? All right, so sign and outline lighting. Okay, so I'm going to go back and look at sign, and I'm going to look and see. I see signs, and I'm looking at, but what I'm looking for is narrowing down my answers. Right? Because when I say signs, I also see branch circuits. So I know it's a calculation. So I'm narrowing my search field in the back down to 220. That's just my mentality, okay? So when I'm looking under signs, I'm noticing under signs, immediately I see something under branch circuits. It says 220, ding, 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 calculations, okay? 220. And then I see that it is 14F. Now, I also see 600.5, but I know that is specific to signs. And the question is not asking me about specific to sign. It's asking me about the calculated value in VA for the branch circuit that's used for a sign and lighting outlet, okay? so if I'm going to the index under signs, I got branch circuits 220.14F, but we're not done. We want to get used to what's in here. So I want to go look under outlets real quick because this question says sign and outline lighting outlets. So I want to go to outlets real quick. I think we know where the answer is, but I want to do it. And if you're out there saying, I don't agree with your method of teaching, it's been great having you. The door's to the right. Don't let it hit you in the butt on the way out. Say hi to everybody on the way. My way of teaching is not for everybody, okay? All right, so, and I recognize that. I really do. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all. All right, so if I look under, let's say, blah, blah, blah. Let's see, where was I going? Oh, lighting outlets, okay? So under lighting outlets, I see branch circuits again. It's 220.14F. That's how you pick a root question. Okay, so 220.14F, again, remember, it's a calculation. It's asking me for VA, think 220, okay? But I'm not done yet. I wanna look more. So I wanna look and see if there's anything under outlet by itself. Now I'm looking under outlet, okay, well I see lighting, and that sends me to lighting outlets. So that would have given me that pathway to lighting outlets. Okay, all right. So last one, did we look, maybe I'm having a brain fart. Did we look under branch circuits? Is that where I found it the first time? I'm not sure, hold on. No, I found it under sign. So next I'm looking at thinking, oh, well, the obvious thing is branch circuits. Okay, well, let's look and see what's under branch circuits real quick. Here's branch circuits, and let's look, and we already know we're looking for 220. Then we're going down and we're going to go, okay, well, calculations of load under branch circuits says part 2 of 220. Perfect, because then I could have used bold scanning techniques to find it and look for sign and outline lighting outlets, right? It's another way to do it. What else is under that? What else is under branch circuits? Let's see if there's anything under sign. LMO. PQRS, let's see. Nope, that would have been all. So there was 3 ways we could have gotten that answer, okay? All right, so in our case, everything we've been doing so far sent us to 220.14F. So let's go to 220.14F in our code book and see if that's what the answer is. So I'm gonna go to our code book. And let's see here. First time we went to the code book tonight. Oh, it's asking if I'm still online. Absolutely, I'm online. For that money that I pay for that? No, actually, it's given to me for free. All right, 220.14. There we go. Right here. Okay, and it's telling us a minimum of 1200 VA. Okay, so it's just that simple, right? That we've got it. So that is our answer. Very good for those out there that nailed that. But I think the point was that we wanted to show you all the possible ways you can dissect it. Now, we spent a little time on that. And on an exam, you're thinking, Paul, I only got a certain number of time. You're going to get it. You're going to be fine. But what we're trying to show you is that I could have found this answer under lighting outlets. I could have found this answer under signs. I could have found this answer under branch circuits. And now I know what is under signs. Now I know what's under branch circuits. Spend that time you need. That's all part of your study session. That's what a real educator does. If a person tells you otherwise, don't put your money in them. Don't invest your future in that person. They don't know what they're talking about, okay? You have to learn how to understand questions. Why? Because when you get out into the field, this is the same thing you're going to do. When the question comes up, and you're listening to somebody, I got to do this all the time. When I'm teaching seminars or I'm somewhere and people come up and bombard me with questions, I have to understand what they're saying and I have to dissect a portion of what they're asking me. It's no different. You're going to have to do that in the field as well. So the more you learn these techniques and you use the index and get familiar with it, it's just going to make your life so much easier. So there's our answer. There's our reference. Sweet doggy. Next question. Y'all doing great. Now, where a branch circuit or feeder originates in additional buildings or other structures, okay, so you're in one building and we're in another building, and the branch circuit or feeder originates in a different building, okay? So where the branch circuit or feeder originates in additional buildings or other structures, only blank feeders or branch circuits shall be permitted to supply power back to the original building or structure unless permitted in the code. Okay, so can I have only one feeder or branch? There's a general rule. 2, 3, or 4. Okay, so where do you think we'd find this answer? Okay, oh, I'm sorry. Did I never leave the question? Did I never leave the... I'm glad you said something, because I got so many buttons on here that I left y'all in the dark. That's okay, because now we get to start and go answer the question. Okay, I get so excited teaching code. All right, so yes, I am 50 some years old, but you know, I can't help it. I got so many buttons going on up here, but maybe y'all can appreciate the neatness of the coffee hour. I'm just saying. All right, anyway, so where a branch circuit or feeder originates in additional buildings or other structures, only blank feeders or branch circuits shall be permitted to supply power back to the original building or structure unless permitted in the code. So I'm in this building, you're in that building. I'm supplying power to that building, but can it come back to the original building? And if it can, are you limited to the feeders or branch circuits under the general rule? Okay, for this. All right. So what's the answer? 1, 2, 3, or 4? Okay, can you go boom, 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 back and forth? Okay. Well, first things first. First things first. What are we talking about here? We're talking about a feeder or a branch circuit that is leaving the building. It's going to another building. So we're not talking about 210 for branch circuits. We're not talking about 215 for feeders. We're talking about what? 225. It covers outside branch and feeders. So again, this just takes a little getting familiar with it, in understanding the concepts of what's being asked here. And 225 is not that big, so you can bold scan it and find it. Okay, now I lost my train of thought. I was going to explain something. I was going to get deep and philosophical, but again, what's the point? All right, so let's go and look at 225, and remember the whole concept is supplying the original building, that type of thing. Okay, so let's go to 225, and let's do some bold scanning. And we're going to do this because, oh, that's another tip. That's what I was thinking about to tell you. Sometimes when you think about an article, if your knowledge of the code means you're doing your flashcards. Now, in our fast track system, we have electronic flashcards. Y'all have heard me talk about making flashcards in the past. If you don't have an electronic system, you're using something else, do me a favor. Go to Dollar General, which are Family Dollar, or one of those places like that, and pick up index cards. And when you get these, now ours are electronic in our program, so you can create endless numbers. And I usually tell students during that training time, I recommend you, if you want to get to the point where you're rattling off the different articles, so that you see something, you go, boom, 225, just because you know it. And you know 210 is branch circuits, you know 215 is feeders, you know 430 is motors, okay, you know 250 is grounding and bonding, right? You get to knowing all those things. 404 is switches. 406 receptacles, 400 flexible cords and cables, 310 conductors, okay? 300 general requirements, okay? 334 non-metallic sheet cable, 336 SE cable. 336 is tray cable, 338 is SE cable. You know what I'm saying? You start getting to know these things. 700 emergency systems, 701 legally required, 702 optional. You start to get these different things. 500 hazardous locations, okay? To get there, create flashcards. And on one side of the flashcard, put the article. And on the other side, put what it is. And test yourself so that you can just flip through these cards and make sure that you can get 220, calculations, branch feeder and service calculations. Okay. 220, part 3, standard method. Part 4, optional method. Part 2, branch circuits. Okay. It's part 5, farm loads of 220. Get so familiar with the articles. It's going to serve you better. It's not just for getting the exam. My belief is that I don't want to hire a surgeon to do brain surgery on me if he doesn't continue his knowledge. I think electricians should always be continuing their knowledge. That's the way I believe. Okay. So this is a constant learning thing, right? Okay. So in this case, bold scanning in 220, you're familiar with it. It won't take you long. So if you go to 220, you look at it, it's only, and so the other tip that I tell you is if you know an article is short, it's not real long, then sometimes it's better to simply go to the actual article and start bold scanning, okay? You know it's not going to be part 3 unless it's something about the construction of a product. So chances are it's not that if it's a wire and method type. So, you can eliminate some certain things. So you'll get real familiar with it. So when it comes to 225, let's see here, there's 1, 2, 3 or 4 pages. That's it, okay? And you'll notice that when you start getting here and you start bold scanning, that part 2 is dealing with buildings or other structures supplied by feeders or branch circuit, part 2. Part 1 is general, part 2. So one of the other tips is if you don't even know where to go when you're bold scanning is real quick, you hit it and you look at the parts to make sure you're within the right part that you might need to be, right? Say, for example, part 3 of 225 is over 1,000 volts. There's no mention of that here, okay? So I wouldn't be in part 3. So quickly, I would narrow my search down. I don't need to be in part 3, right? So I'm like, okay, so it's obviously in part 1 or part 2. Well, part 1 is general, very quick looking, shows it has nothing to do with this. Part 2, the header tells me exactly what it should be. And then you see number of supplies. 225.30, it says a building or other structure that is served by a branch circuit or feeder on the load side of a service discontinuing shall be supplied by only one feeder or branch circuit unless permitted in 220.30a. Again, we didn't get into the permissions, so we're going to be at what the code says here. And that is 1. That's the general rule, 1. Code allows other ways, other things, but based on this question, it's 1. Don't overanalyze it. Answer the question. So the answer should be 1. And there it is, 225.30. Very good. I wouldn't expect anything less from you, Schwartzy. All right. The next one. Y'all can see it, right? To make sure I'm on the question. Okay. All right. Intersystem bonding terminals shall provide at least blank terminals to make termination for other systems. All right. So this happens to be in an article that is near and dear to my heart. So those that know me know which one it probably is. It's probably the biggest article and probably pound for pound the most confused article in the code. When we think of intersystem bonding, we need to think about a connection that brings other systems all together. Nailed it, Schwartzy. And I don't even know where my stuff is anymore. I got a new setup here, guys, where I'm going to do. There you go. Okay. That's enough of that. That's all you get, Schwartz. All right, so, because you got to get deeper than that. We got to go deeper. So, intersystem bonding. Now, one of the things with this one is, what is the core here? It's intersystem bonding. And terminations, that's the root here. So let's say we could go, 250 is big. So maybe I'm going to go back in the back and look under something more descriptive. Maybe I'm going to look under intersystem bonding terminal in the back. So let's go to the back and look and see if there's anything under it real quick. Again, you can't use the index for everything, but what is our method to the madness? We're using the index. We're learning the index. Okay, so let's see. Go to intersystem, see if there's anything under intersystem bonding. And I'm back here, and let's see here. I got intermediate. And let's see. Is there anything in here for intersystem bonding? Maybe, maybe not. Let's see here. Intercommunicate. All right, intercommunication system. Nah. Interconnected electric pen. Yeah. No. We have intersystem bonding terminations. Okay. So this one is saying 545.27, and then it's telling me 700.100b. And I'm thinking, now my mind says, all right, I might have to go look at those, but I'm not thinking that has anything to do with what I'm dealing with, because 545 is what? Well, 545, be real specific in your code answer, beanies. You're there. Be exact for me. If you know about intersystem, it's talking about being able to connect the systems all together. You're almost there, beanie. You're getting close. Intersystem, connecting systems together, and for taking, for example, the possibility of having communication system like CATV and Dish Network and all those other things. So 545, I'm thinking manufactured type of buildings. 770, I'm thinking fiber optic. It's not really gonna help me there. So the next thing I'm gonna look at and see as well, I wanna look, and I'm not going to go where we obviously think it would be, but I'm going to go, let's go under bonding real quick and see what might be under bonding. If you found the answer already, kudos. But I'm looking under bonding. I got to extend my eyes down here. And under bonding, I'm looking and seeing intersystem bonding, and it's giving the same references for 454 and 700. Sure would make you think you better go there, right? But I know differently, so maybe it's just the code panel guy in me that knows where I think I'm supposed to go. So I'm still not liking those answers. And I think, but here's what we're going to do. Let's go to 545.27 real quick and just see where it takes us. Just for craps and giggles, I'm going to go to 545. Let's follow that logic chain here. Let's go 545. What is it? 545. Sorry about that. I'm getting old. And the heck was I at real quick? What was it at, guys? I flipped and got away from it. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. .27. So 545.27. I just want to see what it says. Well, guess what? 545.27 will send you, says the install one communication bonding termination in accordance with 250.94. So it ends up sending it to 250.94. Ha. There you go, right? So we're going to go to 250.94. So you could have gotten there that way. And it was in 2 locations you could have gotten there. Yeah, but you would have had to go flipping into the future. But you know that if you're in the program, you know that when we're talking intersystem bonding, there's an allowance, there's rules in 250 that deal with these intersystem bonding applications, right? So now, incidentally, I don't know that there is anything up in the table of contents for that. Let me just look real quick. I don't think so. It's just bonding in general. Okay, doesn't say anything about intersystem. Right? Okay, so 250.94. We'll go look at it. Okay, there it says intersystem bonding terminal devices. Okay, so it says in here, following, we have an A, and then we have what? We have a B, but we're still in A because it's talking about the general. So it says A. It says consists of a set of terminals with a capacity for connecting not less than 3 intersystem bonding conductors. So it is 250.94A, item number 2. Now, for me, my eye drew me to this one because of our question. Our question said terminations, right? And it has terminal in it, okay? That drew me to it. The other thing that I usually remind people is that also the answers can draw it to you. So if I'm here and I'm looking for 2, 3, 4, or 6, those type of things, right? Now, what's crappy is this question gives you numeric. And in here, it actually spells it out, THREE. You'll train your mind to be able to distinguish that. But I am looking for a reference, either the 1, 2, 3, whatever. I know it's got to be either 2, 3, 4, 6. But here, my mind got drawn to terminals. My mind got drawn to 3. And so that was the answer. And we could have gotten there using the index, but it wasn't as simple. Okay, I guarantee you a Tom Henry key index would have had that in there, right? It would have probably said intersystem bonding terminals, the number, or something like that. Well, our index is not going to be that intuitive, but it still gets us there, right? If you study it, if you get used to it. Okay, so we'll go 3, check our reference. There we go. Beautiful thing. All right, let's go on to the next one. Y'all are doing great, by the way. All right, next one. A total resistance to current flow in an AC circuit is called, okay. So this is the knowledge question, obviously. This is not one specifically that you'll find in the NEC unless you go to something like Chapter 9, Table 9, right? And if you want to do that, you can go look at it with me if you want. But this is just a electrical theory question. And me working for a wire and cable guy, folks, you know, it's one of those things I have to talk about this stuff all the time. Inductance, reactance, capacitance, and all that good stuff. But if you go look at Chapter 9, Table 8, and you start looking at everything here, you'll see that this is talking about things like resistance, reactance, and ultimately the effective Z and all that is dealing with impedance. So ultimately, the total that has to do with reactance and anything to do with reactance is dealing with capacitance, all those type of things that are resistance to current flow. They impede current flow in an AC system. Unlike resistance alone in a DC system, here AC system. So impedance is actually the Z. It's made up of a bunch of different factors. So the answer to this should be impedance. Now, the one thing I don't like about these questions that I like about our fast tracks questions are much better. It gives you a more detailed explanation. This should have had a little bit more explanation, but anyway, you just need to know that impedance represents inductance, capacitance, reactance, all those things wrapped up in the one to give you a total impedance, right? Okay. It's just a knowledge question. All right, next one. All right, a concrete and cable. We're gonna do 10, by the way. So in case you know, I think we're on 8 right now. So hang in there with me. A concrete encased electrode can be installed horizontally with at least 20 feet of 1/2 inch or larger rebar, or with 20 feet of at least blank AWG bare copper conductor. Okay, where would you find this one? Okay. Oh, and before we go tonight, I am going to do a raceway fill calculation for you. I just want to make sure we end on a nice little raceway fill calc. So I'll fictitiously make one up, and we'll all work it out together. That's for the end. So those that want to hang in there. All right. So this one, a concrete encased electrode can be installed horizontally at least 20 feet of 1/2 inch or larger rebar, or with 20 feet of at least blank AWG bare copper conductor. Okay, first thing we need to identify what we're talking about. Well, obviously we're talking about what? We're talking about an electrode. We're talking about a grounding electrode, right? So that's what we're talking about. Let me make sure that y'all are seeing the code question. Yep, because I don't have a lot of activity in the chat. So, all right, so where do I go? Well, if I'm trying to find out what a concrete encased electrode can be, we know that it can be 1/2 inch rebar, but it's obviously a certain conductor that it can be. Well, one, if you're in our program, and there's a lot of good questions tonight are from a code panel that I like, you could probably know which article deals with the different electrodes and grounding electrodes. And you probably know which section deals with grounding electrodes because it's an A1, an A2, an A3, an A4, an A5, an A6, A7. You get it, right? But if I was learning and I didn't know, you could go to the index and you could probably look under, well, let's just go look under concrete encased electrode because we can always easily look under grounding electrodes or electrodes. But let's just look and see if there's an obvious is under concrete encased electrode. I don't know. Sometimes it's worth looking at the obvious. So we'll see if there's anything under concrete encased electrodes and be able to totally rule that out. So if there's nothing under concrete encased electrodes, then guess what? We know now there's a reason why we use the index. We know we don't need to be looking for a concrete encased electrode under concrete encased electrode, but there might be. So let's go look. All right, so I've got concrete, okay, but nothing under concrete. And so what did we learn? We learned one thing, concrete encased electrode's not in there. That's valuable, right? Because now you know if you get a question about it, that is not where you need to go, right? So how about grounding electrodes? Well, let's go look under grounding electrodes. Or I guess since we're already on that journey, let's look under electrodes real quick. See if it has electrodes and then lists them under it. So I'm going to look under E for electrodes real quick. Again, real quick for me means I have to adjust my glasses because I can't see nothing. Let's see. I don't see anything under electrodes. Of course, I could be missing it. I am half blind. Oh, there we do. We do see electrodes. There you go. And oh, check what out. Under electrodes, we have concrete encased 250.50. And then there's 250.52A3, then 250.66B. Okay, so the first thing we've established, it's in Article 250. Secondly, we know that, what is that little rule I tell you when you're doing the test and you're using your scratch paper? When you're using scratch paper and you know that you've now identified it as 250, you put 250 on your scratch paper, and then underneath it, you put the different sections so you don't have to come back here again. So I would put 0.50, 0.52A3, 0.66, and if you're savvy enough, you realize that that is one of the allowances when that is the, used to be called the sole electrode. But anyway, that should be enough under concrete encased electrodes. So I found that under electrodes, okay? All right, so electrodes has a list of them. Look and see what is under there and what's not under there. Let's see, metal frame of a building is in there. Metal water pipes under there. Does it talk about ground rods under there? Doesn't say anything about ground rods under this one. Okay, so always remember that. You might have to go somewhere else for the ground rods. So the next thing I would look under would be, let's look under grounding electrodes. So I'm gonna look under grounding electrodes and see if there's anything under grounding electrodes. Okay, so let's see, underground, I got grounding electroconductors. That's not what we want. I got under grounding. And let's see if there's grounding conductors, not what I want. Not really help me. So grounding electrodes, it tells me to go see electrodes. Okay. All right. So that would have been another way that got me back to that. Okay. And let's see here. Yep. So two ways it would have gotten me to 250.50 and 250.52. All right. So we're going to go to 250.52. Now, my hope for you is that you will learn that 250 tells you about having to tie all the electrodes together. 250.52 starts talking about the different types of electrodes. And as you move further on, it starts talking about how to make those connections for the different types of electrodes and things like that. So it's a progression. So 250.50 starts out telling you what you have to do, bond them all together. And then 250.52 starts out to tell you what the electrodes are, and then it slowly progresses into making the different connections and to these different types of electrodes. So it's a progression, right? All right, so 250.52 and 250.50 is where we want to go. So if I'm in 250.50, that's the start. It tells me I have to establish the grounding electrode system, then reminds me that 250.52 A1 through A7, okay? is used. And of course, there is an A8 as well, which very rarely gets used, but there is there. So now when you look at 250.52a, there's 1, metal underground water pipe. 2, this metal in-ground support structure. 3 is our concrete encased electrode. And real quickly looking over it, you see that item number 2, which is 250.52a32, is 4 AWG, which y'all have been nailing in the questions in the chat. So you got it. You've been nailing it, making easy work of this one here. Okay, so we're going to answer this one, and there's the reference. Okay, so the rebar is the 1, and the 20 is the 2. Awesome. All right, maximum number of receptacles that can be installed in an office partition or group of partitions shall not exceed blank. Okay. So let's think about this one. What are we talking about here? So if you're used to doing all this, you're thinking, this sounds an awful like office furnishings, right? Because the code has a reference, has a specific article for office furnishings, things that go in these office furnishings, divide the different office spaces in. You've seen these walls, these partitions. Okay, so you might know that, and you might go back in the back and say, well, okay, maybe you don't know office furnishings. Maybe you're not familiar with that. Okay, well, maybe you're like, okay, was there anything in the back under office, period? Because it says office. So I'm gonna go look at the back under O. Now, can anybody regurgitate for me why I keep going to the index, even if I probably may or may not know the answer? It's to get familiar with what's here, right? So I also had somebody on one of my YouTube videos one time go, Paul, I don't like how you're redundant, how you repeat things over and over again. My answer to that is, you need to go somewhere else and learn. Don't watch my videos. I'm redundant because it's a process of redundancy that I've established over 30 years. I say things over and over again on purpose. It's to sink in, right? But I have had people post that on something, say, Paul, I don't like your stuff because you're redundant. Okay, well, you know, there's always other people out there that teach. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. All right, so under O, I'm seeing office furnishings. Well, I see office partition, but I see office furnishings. And right underneath it, I see the term. I see what? I see partition. Right there. What's the other thing that I notice? And I tell this to people all the time. When I get into an article like this and I chose office and I'm looking and I see partition, when I get here and I notice that the sections, it's 605 article. When I see that there's only like a .2, a .6, a .7, a .9, a .5, a .4, the first thing in my mind, I tell you what? Go right to 605. Don't waste any more time, because that means that sucker ain't but 1 page long. It's probably barely a page, right? It's going to be easy to bold scan it. Don't spend a lot of time in it. But if you're in the learning mode and you're like, okay, well, no, I see office furnishings. It didn't say office furnishings, but I see partition. But the reason I went to office is to see if there was anything in there. And it's just our luck. It just happens to be there, right? Okay, so, all right. So the next thing I want to look at, thanks, Schwartzy. Thanks for joining as always. The next thing I would look and see, is there anything under P for partitions? Just to see. And no, I don't see anything under partitions. How about receptacles? Because it's talking about receptacles. Okay, so I'm going to look under receptacles. And again, why are we doing this? We already know we're going to go to 605. We're doing it so we can learn what is and what isn't in the back of the book. Again, there's that redundancy. I'm looking at receptacles, and I'm not going to go to 406 for that. I'm going to just look in the back under receptacles. And let's see, LMNOP. Can you bear with me because I can't see? All right, so under, oh, that's a good tip also if you're taking an exam. Make sure you have glasses and you can see, and you have your prescriptions. And don't be afraid, let's see here, don't be afraid to take a magnifying glass. They will not turn that away. Okay, if you have trouble seeing these little texts and you need a magnifying glass, you're old like me. I just recently got my FAA license for my drone pilot, and that text was so small. If I didn't have this sucker right here, I would be, you know what? I'd be gone postal. You'd be reading about me in probably CNN and MSN because, you know, that's the most truthful media outlet out there. But at the end of the day, hey, probably would read something about me. All right, so in this case here, we're looking under receptacles, and I'm going to see what we've got, and I'm going to see if there's anything with office. Oh, look, office furnishings. Yeah, it didn't say office partition, but it says office furnishings, and it's sending me more specific, right? It's sending me to 605.9. How about that? So again, there's many ways to get there. You just have to, study. So now I know that what is in, and I'm looking at receptacles while I'm back here, and I've noticed it talks about the mounting of receptacles. I notice it's talking about grounded type, face plate. There's a lot of information under receptacles. So again, dwelling where required, 210.52, that's the spacing rules, things like that. Okay. So anyway, so there you go. So, all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go the maximum number of receptacles. We're going to go to 605. And since it says outlets, okay, then we're going to go to 605.9 under receptacles. So I'm going to go to 605. Outlets being the location that the device goes into, by the way. All right, so let's go to 605. Now remember, somebody says that it doesn't say partition. You got to work with the question. Unfortunately, the exam's not going to be perfect. They're not going to give you the answer. Everything is going to be so logical, right? You got to kind of use some knowledge to get there. So I'm going to go to 605 furnishings. And how big is this? What is this? Basically 2 columns. That's about it. All right. So 605.9, and I noticed that it says receptacles maximum. All right. All right. So this says partition, but they say office furnishings. Who knows what you get on the exam? It could say office furnishings on your exam, and you're like, whoop, whoop. But you have to know that office partition, at least we went to the back, right? And we went to the back under office, under O, and we saw office furnishings, and then underneath it, it said partitions, and that would have at least gotten us to where we needed to be in the back here. And then we were looking at receptacles, and this is asking about a maximum number. Well, it says receptacle maximum, so regardless of me not seeing the word partition in there, I'm not going to let that slow me down. So I'm going to look at it and say the individual office furnishing or group, hey, it says group in it, of interconnected individual office furnishings shall not contain more than 15 amps. So the answer is 13. Okay. Reference 605.9c. Okay. Now, I will say that I believe that the questions that are in our Fast Tracks program are more logical driven towards what you might see on an exam. You're right. Some of these are a little loosey-goosey with the question, but again, good questions still makes you think, and that's what it's all about. The other part of that is, let's see here. Okay, so your question was about office partitions. So let me take you, since you're here, let me take you over to 605.2, the definitions of office furnishings. This might be helpful for you. If you turn the page back one and you look at office furnishings, what does it say? It says cubicles, panels, partitions, study carrels or whatever, workstations, desks, shelving systems, and storage units that may be mechanically or electrically interconnected to form an office furnishing system. So the word partition is in there under office furnishings. So maybe the thought was you saw partitions, you went to 605, it's very small. But I think the maximum receptacles, that thing would have drawn you to the answer. But again, it does say partitions in the definitions of office furnishings. It just doesn't say it in the question. And again, you got to be careful because you're going to get some crappy questions on exams, trust me. You're going to get some questions where you walk away from the exam and you go, That's the stupidest question, and just hope you got it right. Because again, you got to remember, somebody else is writing it, and we're trying to answer it for what we think they want it to be. So some of them can be quite challenging. Okay, next one. If a grounding electrode conductor connects non-current carrying metal parts to ground in a system over 1,000 volts, over 1,000 volts, it says the grounding electrode conductor shall be sized in accordance with table what? Okay. All right. 250.66, 250.122, 250.140, or 430.250. Okay. This is a good one to use logic. Okay. Would you all agree that 430.250 has nothing to do with the question? Will we all agree? If we all agree, can I get a hoya? Okay, yeah. So we all agree that 430.250 is probably not going to be the one. All right, so narrowing it down. Well, next one we can narrow out. You think it would be 250.140? No, because 250.140, that deals with ranges and dryers and existing, you know what I'm saying? All right, so we could probably narrow that one down. But before we even narrowed that one down, could we have narrowed down 250.122 immediately? Heck yeah. Because 250.122 is sizing what? Equipment grounding conductors based on the size of the overcurrent device. So even before we did this one, we could have narrowed this one out. We could have gotten rid of this one right away because that's dealing with equipment grounding conductors. Now we had a 50-50 chance. We know that 250.66 deals with grounding electrode conductors, right? So the only question is, does it deal with them when they're over 1,000 volts? That is the question. Do I have music for that? No, I don't have any music. You know what I do have, though, is this.
Hey, what up, everybody? I've got voice change mode on. So if me and Jay ever have another stream, I can use this to mask him when he gets the question wrong, because we know that he will. All right.
Let me get rid of that, okay? But Jay sounds more like this.
When you all agree, this is more like a grunver.
All right, so now we've got to determine whether or not this is the answer. So interesting enough, when we're dealing with, that's the reference, Ron, but that's not the answer, but you're going with my track. You're tracking with me. So what we're dealing with is over 1,000 volts application. And so when that comes to case, then one of the things that we can do is we can go look at the very front of the book real quick, and we can look at the table of contents, just because we haven't done that really tonight. And let's look at 250. And you notice 250 is broken down into, looks like 10 parts. Well, what does the 10th part say? Grounding of systems and circuits of over 1,000 volts. Starts on page 137. So in this case, we knew that it was dealing with 1,000 volts. So in my mind, I'm thinking, look, that's significant, because I'm so used to dealing with 600 volt systems. As an electrician, I'm so used to dealing with 1,000 volts and less. So there's obviously something different when you're dealing with over 1,000 volts. So this is an example for me. I might have gone to the index. But also one of the other things I might have done, right, is gone to 250 and just real quick bold scanned the parts. Part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5, real quickly to see where the reference was to over 1,000 volts, okay? But in this case, we know that it's part 10, and to see what that guidance gives us. So part 10 of 250 is, he said it was on page 137. So I'm at 137, and here's part 10. It says grounding of systems and circuits of over 1,000 volts. Ding, 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 ding. So then I'm going to scan really quickly the bolds and get down to where I need to be dealing with grounding electrode conductor. And I'm going to boom, 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 and I go down. And I see boom, 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 boom. I'm just kind of going down. And I see Oh, wait a minute. I see 250.190. I see that. And then underneath it, it says, oh, wait a minute. There's a 250.190B grounding electrode conductor. Well, that's what I'm trying to find, grounding electrode conductor. But wait a minute. 250.190B is not one of my answers. That's because if you look at it, it sends you back to 250.66. Okay? And I could also argue this question is wrong because 250.66 is different than table 250.66. Okay, here it says go back to table 250.66, but we're not going to argue the semantics of the question. We're just going to say that's got to be the answer. And the reference is 250.190B. Ron nailed it. Do I have music for that? Do I have anything for that? That is my most pathetic audience sound effect yet. It's not like 10 people in a room clapping. All right. So anyway, there you go. That answers that one. So yes, 250.66 ultimately is dealing with grounding electrode conductors, and it doesn't matter whether or not it's over 1,000 volts or it is under 1,000 volts because X is going to ultimately send you back. Right? Very good job, Ron. By the way, Ron just finished the Fast Tracks program. He's gone through all 19 units. Ron, I would have expected you also by now to have gone through most of these practice exams. I just have that faith in you. All right, next question. All right, next one. Now, to indicate he is, wasn't he? He was right on there because he knows the deal. Ron knows the deal. Specific answers. Get that answer. All right. Now, to indicate a ground fault in solidly grounded Y, legally required standby systems of more than 150 volts to ground and circuit protective devices rated blank amperes or more, the sensor for the ground fault signal device shall be located at or ahead of the main system disconnecting means for the legally required standby source. So what do you think? What are our triggers here? Well, my trigger is you're asking me a whole bunch of crap in this question. And all of it seems to be centered around what? Legally required standby systems. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying. Everything seems to be centered around legally required standby systems. So now, if you had your flashcards, then you know that legally required standby systems is, okay, 700 is emergency, 702 is optional, so 701 is legally required, and it's not that big, okay, to deal with. Now, you could have gone to the back of the book, and let's just say I go to the back of the book. I think we already know where to go in the article, and you could have gone there, and I'm sure many of you have, and you already started bold scanning, but if I were to go to the back and let's see if there's anything under legally required. Let's see if I can find anything in here for it. For legally required. I said there was only 10. We're doing 11. We're doing a bonus one. All right. So if I go look here, let's see if there's anything under legally required. There we go. Legally required standby. I see it. I see it. And let's see, let's kind of go down and see what we've got here. Well, I also noticed, what do I notice really quickly? There is not a whole lot of sections in this. Legal required, 701, probably the best place to start with 701. I do see transfer equipment. It's not really talking about transfer equipment, but I'm going to tell you it's probably somewhere around that. And that is 701. Let's see here. 70, what is that? 701.5. So somewhere in there. Now, since this is talking about indicating, I'm also interested in that signal 701.6, right? Because it's kind of like an indication to ground fault and based on the system, although we're looking for the amps, right? So I'm going to go to 7. But since I told you, once you notice that this is not a big article, then where do you go? I'm going to bold scan. So I'm going to 701. Oh, wait a minute. I hate when other people do that, so I hate when I do it. 701. O is not a number. All right, so, yeah, but we get it. It's all good. All right, so 701. If I was bold scanning, I immediately noticed the term ground fault. and it's indicate ground fault. I immediately noticed that at 701.6 under signal, right? And I see ground fault. And then I start to look at it and I start seeing the answers in the actual language. See, I see the 150 volt, that's from the question. I see 1,000 amps or more. I see that amps or more. Makes sense, just that quick. And I see that it's also, now, you also see there's another one down further that says 1,200 amps. Don't even have to worry about that because that's not even one of our answers, right? So that 1,000 is the one. That 1,000 is the one. And there it is, 701.6D. Okay? All right. Let's come back to me. Y'all have been a trooper tonight. Those are some pretty good questions. So we're going to end this one on a raceway fill calculation. Okay? All right, so I'm going to have to draw this out for you so that you get the perspective. All right? It's going to be an EMT. So electrometallic tubing. And I want to know, well, the first question. I want to know how many 12 gauge THHNs can I put in a trade size number one, a trade size 1 EMT? How many 12s can I put in there and not exceed the 40% fill for chapter 9 table 1's over 2, which is 40% limit? Okay. So, again, you might have those questions, Trench, but it's not a Q&A tonight. So feel free to go to paulabernathy.com and submit those questions. I don't know how long we've been streaming, but I do have to, it's almost 10 o'clock. So almost 2 hours now. So you can always submit, I should have mentioned that to everybody. You can always submit questions to me at paulabernathy.com. It's free, as Jimmy Walker says. So you go there and you can submit to your heart's content any question you want. I make that service available to y'all. So whether you like me or you hate me or you're one of my trolls and you're just sitting in the background going, Paul sucks, find somebody else that answers questions for you for free as often as you want to send them in. That's a no-brainer. I'm just saying, because I care, right? That's for people that don't even buy my program. I'm just saying. All right, so tell me, how many 12 THHNs can I put in a trade size 1 EMT and not exceed the 40% fill? Go ahead. I'll wait. Do we want some music while I'm waiting? Wait till I get some more answers on the screen. Remember, it's an EMT. I'm just flipping my code book like you. Uh-oh, I got a 19 and I got a 26. Uh-oh, controversy. I'm looking myself. I'm kind of feeling good about my fast tracks guy. I'm just saying. All right. A little more time. Oh! Now Trench is coming on board. Sloppy seconds, Trench. Sloppy seconds. All right, enough of that. Okay, so this was an easy. You thought I said THWN. Dude, if I did, it wouldn't change it wouldn't make it any different. They're both the same. All right, so nice try. Oh, where's my button for that? I got a nice try. All right, so this one wasn't a trick question. It was simply pulling from Informative Annex C. And remember, if all the conductors are the same size, and you can go pull the answer for the 40% fill from Informative Annex C, right? Because that's what that table's based on. That's what that is. That's as long as they're all the same size. When they're not all the same size, that's when we have to stop and think a little bit. Okay? So, next question. Y'all ready? All right. So, what size EMT do I need for, let's say, 8 10 gauge THHNs and 5, that's 5 8 gauge XHHW-2s. Can you do that, Paul? Sure you can. All right, as long as their voltage is rated equivalent, then you're good to go. So I've got 8 10 THHNs, and I got 5 8 AWG XHHW-2s. What's the minimum size EMT I need for that? All right, so I'll put some music on while y'all do that and see if you can come up with an answer. Don't guess. Do it. I'm gonna do it with you. I'm slower than y'all are. Y'all are much more savvier than me. So I'm gonna do a little bit slow here. So let's see. I'm gonna work it through here. We had 8 10 gauges, right? Okay. You know, work it with me. Y'all know where to go in the code first? I know you do. So there was 8 10 gauges. Okay. And there was 5 8 gauge X's, XHHW-2. So we got to go through that too. And that was 8 gauge. Okay. All right. No answers yet up there. All right. So I'm going to do this and I'm going to go. Got mine. Add them all up, folks. Let's do it. Okay, and let's see no answers up here yet. I'm getting my final answer here, guys. I'm looking. All right, I have my answer. I'm waiting on y'all. This is for y'all, not for me. I'm gonna go back and double check my work, because I like to double check it. You can listen to my Funky Town music. Remember, it's 8 10s. And it was XHHW-2. Ron is, talk about amazing. So 0.0437. 5. All right, we can turn that music off. All right. Oh, so what do we do with this one, folks? All right. So Ron says that is 1 1/4 trade size EMT, and my answer to that is Ron. If you have not taken your exam yet, run. Take it now. You're so ready, my friend. Okay? I believe in you. You're going to get it, nail it. If you've already done it and you're just teasing us. All right, so the first thing you want to do, obviously, we need to go where? We need to go to chapter 9, and we need to go to what? We need to go to table 5. And in table 5, we're going to find the first one, which is THHN. And we go to THHN, and we got to go to 10 gauge, because we said there was 8 10 gauges. And under 10, you're going to go over to where it says approximate area in square inches, okay? And you see that it is 0.0211, right? You do that, you multiply that by 8, and that is 0.1688. The next one we had to look for was the XHHW-2. Flip one page, you'll see XHHW-2 there. You go down, and that was 8 gauge, and that proximate area was 0.0437. You do that times 5, and that is 0.2185. You add the two together, that should give you 0.3873. Then you're going to go over to table 4, and table 1 of table 4, which I guess, well, not table, it's called C1, I guess is what it is. Or I don't know if it's C1. Anyway, it's the one that deals with EMT, Article 358. And we're going to be in the over 2 wire 40% column. Why? Because table 1 of chapter 9 tells us when you have over 2 conductors, then you cannot fill that raceway more than a cross-sectional area of 40%, right? So we're going to go immediately just to the over 2 wires, 40% column. We're going to go down, and we need to make sure that we have a raceway that can at least accommodate our 0.3873, okay? So we're going to go down this list, and obviously trade size 1's not going to work. It's close, but it's 0.346. Close, but that's only in horseshoes. Close only in horseshoes and plumber exams. But in this case, we had to go to the next one, which is 1 1/4, and that is 0.598. That can easily handle the 0.3873. Just like that. Now, if you get that same question and they do all this, and then they have a follow-up question that says, how many 12 gauges could you add to that and not exceed the fill? Well, then what would you do? All right, well, first of all, I know my fill for what I have is 0.3873, and I know what the 40% is at 1 1/4. It's 0.598. So I'm going to take that 0.598. I'm going to subtract it. I'm going to take away my 0.3873 because I've already got that space filled up with my wire. It's already in there, right? I need to find what's the remaining space, right? What's the remaining area? So I'm going to take that and I'm going to minus 0.3873, and that leaves me a remainder of 0.2107. So that's the amount I have left still to get to that 40%. So I can use it. I can use it. So first thing I said is, how many 12 gauge THHNs could I add? Well, you got to take that number, which is a 0.2107, and then go back to table 9, chapter 9, table 5, and find THHN in 512 gauge, and that is 0.0133. So I'm going to take that 0.2105, and I'm going to divide that into 0.0133. So I'm going to divide this into 0.0133, and that says 15.8, okay? So you can't have 0.8 of a conductor, so I can get 15 more in there, and I still wouldn't exceed the 40%. You could have that on an exam, believe it or not, right? They want to know what's the remaining, okay? So that type of thing. Look at Ron. He nailed it. That's what fast tracks will do for you. I'm just saying. He's a testament to that. Plus, he's done great through the program anyway. All right. So that's just, and another question you might get on an exam. Hey, Ron, let me test you out. What is the total area of a 1.5 trade size EMT? But if you get that question on there, guess what? The answer is just the right column of the EMT. Well, the right column says total area, 100%. That's the answer. Just the total area, if that's what's asking a question. So 1.5 would be 2.036. That's the total area. Okay. All right. So that's a lot. And I think you all are going to be successful. If you really want to learn the code, give my fast tracks some consideration. Ask any of the students you want. I don't care who you ask. Those that have been through it truly studied. I mean, truly went through the program and really worked it and didn't give up, or who got scores below 60 and really tried again, who got below 85 and really went back and looked it up and really put it in. You got to want it. You got to earn it. You can't just buy a course and expect to pass. I don't make you any guarantees on that. You give me your time, you give me your commitment. You come to a Wednesday night here and there. They're not mandatory. You come when you want, then I promise you'll be successful. The code is the code. I'm here to answer any question I can answer for you. It doesn't matter how complicated it is. If it's a question you have, we have Robert, who's in our program, who asks me tough questions all the time. And he knows that I know that he also posts these questions on other forums as well, because I see them, Robert. I know where you're asking questions. So at the end of the day, if you have questions, please bring them. I want you to be successful. I really do. That's the whole process, is to be successful. Okay? All right, folks. That's it for tonight. Hopefully you got something out of that. Until next time, I hope you enjoyed the stream. God bless, and I wish you all the utmost success. Remember, you can also go to paulabernathy.com and submit questions. I'm always here to help. Till next time, folks, stay safe. God bless.
Morning coffee, vanilla latte served to go. I drink it slow. Morning coffee, cappuccino.